And now, the best 60-ish seconds of your week. It's the dog days of summer. The Congress of the United States is in recess, the state legislatures are out, and there might not be that much to talk about politically. We'll get to that in a minute. But last week we gave you a little tidbit about the Houston Astros setting a record potentially this season for not issuing a single intentional walk. But there's a bigger Guinness Book of World Record that I neglected to mention because of the August recess. Earlier this month, the people of Monongahela, Pennsylvania, set the Guinness Book of World Records set for the largest cookie table in history. What's a cookie table, you ask? If you're asking, you're obviously not from Western Pennsylvania, where the cookie table is many times more important than the wedding cake at the nuptial ceremony. And the good folks there, in celebration of the 250th anniversary of their town, created a cookie table of 88,425 cookies. I just want to know who the hell counted them all. But to those good folks, congratulations. You own the world record. I'm betting it won't get broken for a long, long time. And politically, the Democrats are traipsing around Iowa to the Iowa State Fair and other places in search of those votes for the early caucus there next year. And Joe Biden appears, despite the gaffes that have been coming a mile a minute, to be holding his lead pretty steady. But there are things percolating beneath the surface there that are worth looking at. Most notably, the rise of Elizabeth Warren. That was kind of unexpected because she and Bernie are still fighting for the far left of the Democrat Party. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris is struggling because she can't find a lane between Joe Biden, who ostensibly is in the middle, and Warren and Sanders out on the nutty left. So she's trying to navigate. She's dropped a little bit. Jay Inslee is out. Imagine that. Who was the first one out? Precisely. Can't even remember. There are so many candidates in that Democrat field that most of them will remain no-named entities. They're going to drop out increasingly as we go forward into September, because the next Democrat debate is the real narrowing of that process. The winnowing really begins in earnest at that point, because if you're not onto that main stage, frankly, you're not going to be the nominee, and they all recognize that. So stay tuned. And the economy continues to dominate and will throughout 2020, because ultimately James Carville was right. It's the economy, stupid. And this week, the yield curve finally flattened out again, something we've talked about long before it became a household term. And now that long-term rates are greater than short-term rates, at least in the short term, the economy is picking up again. The markets reflected that as the week went on. However, this was filmed before the potentially big announcement by the Fed at the end of the week. So we don't know what they're going to do. A 50 basis point cut by the Fed is still something talked about as a real possibility that would stimulate the economy short term, in my judgment. But ultimately, as we said last week, the Fed doesn't have that much yet to be done. Their ability to impact the economy through monetary policy is increasingly shrinking. What's going to be more significant, in my judgment, to watch over the course of the next few months is the federal deficit. You know, the national debt, which is the accumulated federal deficits, when Ronald Reagan took office, was less than $1 trillion. It had taken us over 200 years to get to that point, less than $1 trillion. It now stands at more than $22 trillion, and the deficit alone is $1 trillion. The deficit alone, not the accumulated combined ones, but 1 year alone. The $22 trillion that we're talking about is greater than the entire economic output of the United States. A nation, in my judgment, simply can't sustain that for very long. And so what do Bernie Sanders and company want? A $16 trillion Green New Deal. I mean, it's completely and totally crazy. But where it's not crazy, the American people understand what's good for them, what's good for their pocketbook, and ultimately being able to keep more of what they earn is what they really want. So stay tuned to see whether or not President Trump reverts back to his suggestion that he might actually cut taxes, most notably payroll taxes, which affect a lot more American workers. Would be good for the economy, good for him politically, most importantly, good for the nation. And for now, as you enjoy the fleeting days of summer, that is the best 60-ish seconds of your week.